The Tarot, a short treatise on reading cards by S.L. MacGregor Mathers, 1888. I'm not sharing the book because that was re-typeset, and it has the Marseille tarot in it. Well, black and white outlines of that. To enter within the limits of this short treatise upon any long inquiry into the history of cards is utterly out of the question, and I shall, therefore, confine myself to examining briefly into what relates to their most ancient form, the tarot, or Treatise cards, and to giving as clearly and concisely as possible instructions which will enable my readers to utilize them for fortune-telling, to which they are far better adapted from the greater number and variety of their combinations than ordinary cards. I shall also enter somewhat in their occult and kabbalistical significations. Well, I personally wouldn't recommend this pseudoscience of arranging some oracle to predict the future. Now, the different combinations and stuff, yeah, one versus the other doesn't actually help you produce knowledge of the unseen versus the other. But what happens is it forms associations in yourself, associations in other witnesses that you can then read. So you don't just read the cards, you read yourself and those that are with you when you're doing that. The term tarot, or Treitise, is applied to a pack of 78 cards consisting of 4 suits of 14 cards each, there being one more court card than in the ordinary packs, the Cavalier, Knight, or Horseman, and 22 symbolical picture cards answering for trumps. These latter are numbered from 1 to 21 inclusive, and the 22nd card marked 0. The designs of these trumps are extremely singular, among them being such representations as death, the devil, the last judgment, etc. Now, the 22nd path, in the order of 9 angles system, you have 21 paths, and the path from the moon to Earth is excluded in the listing of the path of weird, but then again, it's implied. And there's also a path implied of, to the rest of the universe. You know, 21 because the 7 planets, moon and sun being listed as a planet. If you connect a path between each of them, you end up with 21. The idea that cards were first invented to amuse Charles VI of France is now exploded, and it is worthy of note in this connection that their suppositions inventor was Jacques Gringonur, I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it, an astrologer and kabbalist. Moreover, cards were known prior to this period among the Indians and the Chinese. Indeed, Attila gives, in one of his tracts on the tarot, a representation of the mystical arrangement of these cards in the temple of Ptah at Memphis, and he further says, upon a table or altar at the height of the breadths of the Egyptian magus or hierophant were on one side a book or an assemblage of cards or plates of gold, the tarot, and on the other a vase, etc. Well, it's kind of reaching to say that this was the arrangement, but I did see a book. It was like from the 70s or something, and it actually had illustrations of stuff from Egypt, or had pictures or something like that, and it showed that the tarot was, in full swing in ancient Egypt. The themes involved, anyways. So you could say that the entire deck, those themes are present. But then again, did they narrow it down to 78 themes? I don't see the... Or 78 arrangements of themes, is a better way to put it. This idea is further dilated upon by P. Christian, the disciple of Eliphas Levi, in his Histoire de la Magie, to which I shall have occasion to refer later. The great exponents of the tarot, Court de Gebelin, Levi, and Attila, have always assigned to the tarot a Kabbalistico Egyptian origin, and this I have found confirmed in my own researches into the subject, which have extended over several years. Well, you could find that it's arranged upon a Kabbalistic structure. And, yeah, the themes went back to ancient Egypt, so, yeah, okay. W. Hughes Wiltshire, in his remarks on the general history of playing cards, says, the most ancient cards which have come down to us are of the tarot's character. These are the 4 cards of the Nuci Horrere at Venice, the 17 pieces of the Paris cabinet, erroneously often called the Grengonure of Charles VI cards of 1392, 5 Venetian tarots of the 15th century, in the opinion of some and not of an earlier date than 1425, and the series of cards belonging to a Minciat set in the possession of the Countess Aurelia Visconti Gonzaga at Milan, when Cicognara wrote. W. A. Chateau, in his History of Playing Cards, says that cards were invented in China as early as 1120. Muhong, or what's that game they play? In the reign of Xun Ho, for the amusement of his numerous concubines. J. F. Vigelant, in his De Rome Histoire Vraie de Vraie, Bohemian Paris, 1857, says that the Chinese have a drawing divided into compartments, or series, based on combinations of the number 7. This is partially taken from Vaillant from the court of de Gebelin's Monde Primitif, Volume 8, page 387. Well, you can say the deck of playing cards, the 3 cards, and the rest of the system kind of comes from the Mamluk cards, but I don't know if he's going to bring that part up. But it so closely resembles the tarot that 4 suits of the latter occupy its first 4 columns. Of the 21 études, 14 occupy the 5th column, and the 7th, the other études, the 6th column. This 6th column of 7 études is that of the 6 days of the week of creation. Now, according to the Chinese, this representation belongs to the first ages of their empire, to the drying up of the waters of the deluge by Iao. It may be concluded, therefore, that this is an original or copy of the tarot, and under any circumstances that the latter is of an origin anterior to Moses, that it belongs to the beginning of our time, to the epoch of the preparation of the zodiac, and consequently that it must own 6,600 years of existence. And the Yazidi year of what? 4750 BCE being its start kind of indicates some of that, because a lot of the astrology and fortune-telling arts and stuff like that does come from those origins. So it's interesting that some date that makes you think of that is what they point at. But notwithstanding the apparent audacity of this latter statement, it must be evident on reflection that the tarot, consisting as it does of 10 numbers of the decimal scale, counterchanged with the tetrad, and of a hieroglyphical alphabet of 22 mystical symbols, must be relegated to a far earlier period in the history of the world than that usually assigned to the introduction of cards into Europe, and we may take the fact of the tarot being the origin of the modern cards as being now pretty well established by general consensus of opinion. It was Court de Gebelin who wrote in his Monde Primitif, Paris, 1781, "Were we to hear that there exists in our day a work of ancient Egyptians, one of their books which had escaped the flames which devoured their superb libraries, and which contained their purest doctrine on most interesting subjects, every one would doubtless be anxious to acquire the knowledge of so valuable and extraordinary a work. Were we to add that this book is widely spread through a large part of Europe, and that for several centuries it has been accessible to every one, would it not be still more surprising? And would not that surprise be at its height were it asserted that people had never suspected that it was Egyptian, that they possess it in such a manner that they can hardly be said to possess it at all, that no one has ever attempted to decipher a single leaf, and that the outcome of a recondite wisdom is regarded as a mass of extravagant designs which mean nothing in themselves." Yeah, pick a deck that's going to teach you something, not just some art deck, because, you know, so many of the decks strip the tarot of their meanings. Would not people think that one was trying to amuse oneself with, and to play upon the credulity of one's hearers? Yet, this is a true fact. The Egyptian book, the sole remains of their superb libraries, exists to our day. It is even so common that no savant has deigned to trouble himself about it, no one before myself having suspected its illustrious origin. This book is composed of 77 leaves or illustrations, or rather of 78, divided into 5 classes, which each present objects as various as they are amusing and instructive. In one word, this book is the pack of tarot cards. Let us now examine the word tarot, or tarot, because they're not pronouncing the T, so you don't see this in what I'm reading here, and discover, if you can, its true derivation. And meaning. Court de Gebelin states that there are 3 words of Oriental origin preserved in the nomenclature of the pact. These are tarot, mat, and pagad. Tarot, he says, is pure Egyptian from tar, path, and ros, or rob, royal, the royal path of life. Mat is Oriental and means overpowered, murdered, crack-brained, not the crack brain we talk about nowadays, and definitely not the political statement. He adds, is also Oriental, from pag, chief or master, and God, fortune, not solidly Aramea or Biblical Hebrew there, and definitely not, we're not really going Egyptian here, but God and Mani, yeah, the fortune and luck, I guess. Valiant says the great divinity are so-called Ashtaroth. Ashtaroth is no other than the Indo-Tartar, Tantara, the tarot, the zodiac. My derivation of the word, because originally you're supposed to pronounce the T, just like Paris, you're originally supposed to pronounce the S, but when it switched into French, and the derivation of the word, which I have never found given by any author, is from the ancient hieroglyphical Egyptian word teru, to require an answer, or to consult, ergo, that which is consulted, or from which an answer is required. This appears to me to be the correct origin of the word, while the second T is an Egyptian hieroglyphic final, which is added to denote the feminine gender. We find similar things in Semitic languages that you can find endings, but the following are interesting metatheses of the letters of Torah. Torah, Tra, is that how you say it, or Tra, equals law. Oh, Torah, yeah, that doesn't really pan off. Tra'o, Hebrew, equals gate. Okay, that makes most sense. Rata is Latin for wheel. Orat, Latin, it speaks, argues, and treats. Ta'or, Egyptian. Tower, the so-called goddess of destruction. Ator, Egyptian. Athor, the Egyptian Venus. A Mr. Lumley tells me there is a Zend word, tarisk, meaning to require an answer. There are Italian, Spanish, and German tarot packs, and since the time of Attila, French also. But these latter are not so well adapted for occult study, owing to Attila's attempted corrections of the symbolism. The Italian are decidedly the best for divination and practical occult purposes, and I shall therefore use them as the basis of the present treatise. Unfortunately, these old-fashioned single-headed cards are obsolete now, and the only ones made are double-headed, which circumstance alters the symbolism in a few instances. I shall therefore, wherever necessary, describe the omitted portion of the design, enclosing it within brackets to mark the same. As before. As I before observed, the tarot pack consists of 78 cards, namely 4 suits of 14 cards each, and 22 symbolic numbered trumps. The 4 suits are, in the Italian, bastoni, coppe, spade, denari. In French, batons, coupes, épées, deniers. In English, wands, clubs, or scepters, cups, chalices or goblets, swords, money, circles, or pentacles. And that answers to the diamonds, hearts, spades, and clubs. Each suit consists of ace, deuce, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Fanti, or valet, or knave, cavallo, or knight or horseman, dama, or reine, or queen, re, and king. The kings in each instance wear a cap of maintenance beneath the crown. The queens wear the crown only. The Queen of Pentacles and the Knave of Scepters are the only ones represented in profile. In the suit of scepters, the king bears a wand, akin to that represented on the small cards of the suit, while the other 3 akin bear a bludgeon similar to that which is shown for the ace. In the suit of cups, that only which is held by the queen is covered, thus showing the essentially feminine properties of this suit, while the scepter held by the king of the preceding suit shows its more masculine character. And I notice that every about a minute or something I end up slipping a little bit, so there's some noise to that. My apologies, of course. And we see some adjustments, like for example we have the Hebrew letter Aleph, which is an A, Beth, a B, Gimel is a G, Daleth, D, He, H, Vau, V, Zain, Z, Cheth, CH, Teth, T, Yod, I, Kaf, K, Lamed, L, Mem, M, Nun, N, Samek, S, Ayin, O, Pe, P, Tzadi, TZ, Kaf, Q, Resh, R, Shin, SH, Tau, TH. Now, if we take it back to the biblical language, we're going to find that the Tau is a plain T, maybe a hard T. The Ein is an AE. Yod would be, well, some of the names would change a little bit, because Lamed would be lamb, and the Teth would be Th, and, you know, TH, the Yud would be an I, so. But in English, you know, so the names of the first card are Bagatu, or Pagad, the Petalur, the Juggler, or Magician. So we're having Italian, French, and English, so I'm attempting to get that part right. The second card, La Papessa, the High Priestess, or Female Pope. The third card, La Imperatrice, the Empress. The fourth card, Le Imperator, La Emperor, the Emperor. 5, the Il Papa, La Papa, the Hierophant or Pope. 6, Le Amante, Le Amorux, Le Amora, yeah, La Amoro, the lovers. That throws you off, because thinking O for 3 letters, right? El Carro, the Chariot, La Justizia, La Justice, and then the 9th card, Le Eremita, La Eremite, the Hermit. The 10th card, Rata de Fortune, La Rue de Fortune, the Wheel of Fortune. The 11th card, La Forza, the Force, Strength, Fortitude. The 12th card, Il Penduto, Le Pendu, the Hanged Man. The 13th card, Il Mort, La Mort, Death. The 14th card, La Temperanza, La Temperance. The 15th card, Il Diabolo, La Diablo, the Devil. The 16th card, La Torre, La Maison Dieu, the lightning struck tower. The 17th card, La Stella, La Étoile, the star. 18th card, La Lune, the moon. The 19th card, Il Sol, Le Soleil, the sun. The 20th card, Le Angelo, the judgment, the last judgment. The 0 card, Il Mato or Il Mat. The Fou, the fool. The 21st card, Il Mondo, Le Monde, the universe. Now, in today's decks, you move this all over quite a bit. I mean, there's some exceptions, but the 0 card would be the A instead of the Sheen. But in older decks, that's what they picked. So, and then all the other ones would be lower. The judgment would be the Sheen, and the magician would be the bait. If we examine the small cards carefully, we shall be struck at once by the comparative similarities of pattern of the scepters and swords, which are only distinguished from each other by the former being straight and the latter being curved. We shall also notice that the deuces have peculiarities of their own, which distinguish them from the rest of the suit. The deuce of scepters forms a cross with 2 roses and 2 lilies on the opposite angles. And the cross between the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valley, the deuce of cups, shows a tessellated pavement or cloth whereon the cups stand. Between them is a species of caduceus, whose serpents are replaced by lion-headed foliations, which recall the Chanuphis serpent of the Gnostics and certain familiar forms of the elemental spirits. Practical occultist will know to what I allude. The deuce of swords forms a species of Vesica Pisces, enclosing a mystic rose of the primary colors. The deuce of pentacles is bound together by a continuous band in such a manner as to form a figure 8, and represents the one as being the reflection of the other, as the universe is that of the divine idea. The 4 aces stand out by themselves from the rest of the pack, each forming, as it were, the key of its respective suit. The ace of scepters recalls the club of Hercules. It is surrounded by 8 detached leaves, whose shape recalls that of the Hebrew letter Yod, or I, and is crowned with the symbol of the triad, represented by the 3 locked branches. It is the symbol of almighty strength within the cube of the universe, which latter is shown by the 8 leaves, for 8 is the first cubical number. The Ace of Cups is of Egyptian origin, which can be more easily seen in the Spanish tarot. The figure, like an inverted M on its front, is all that remains of the Egyptian twin serpents, which originally decorated it. It represents the waters of creation. In the first chapter of Genesis, it is a symbol of power, which receives and modifies. The Ace of Swords is a sword surmounted by a crown, from which depend on either side an olive and a palm branch, symbolic of mercy and severity. Around it are 6 Hebrew yods, recalling the 6 days of the Mosaic creation. It is the symbol of that justice which maintains the world in order, the equilibrium of mercy and severity. The Ace of Pentacles represents eternal synthesis, the great whole of the visible universe, the realization of the counterbalanced power. The 22 trumps are the hieroglyphic symbols of the occult meanings of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. They are numbered from 0 to 21 inclusive. See Table 1 on page 8. And I will now describe carefully the symbolism of each of the hieroglyphical keys. Now, we already read that, and I will share more of the book as I make little fragmentary drawings of these cards.